Hey guys, this is going to be my review of the fourth episode of Cruel Summer, and the episode is called You Don't Hurt, You Don't Eat. So full spoilers again from the beginning. And this episode returns to Kate, and quite a lot going on from her at different times. It's a really dark episode in places. Because it's sort of recapping some of her experiences when she was kidnapped in the basement, and some particularly tough and harrowing memories. And we really start to see a bigger picture of Kate, I think, in this episode, and some of the stuff she's been through and some of the places she's been as a character. So it's a really strong episode, and I think the actress is doing a really amazing job, really coming into her own. So for example, there's a scene early on when they're talking to her lawyer where she just takes control, because they're sort of talking about, well, what's our strategy going to be, and the lawyer's sort of warning the family then this will be a tough case and that kind of thing. And her mother's again being her normal obnoxious sort of loudmouth sort of self, and it's absolutely glorious watching Kate put her mother in her place, and just that sort of laser sharp focus she has. I mean, I think in this scene we actually see a much more ruthless side of Kate than we haven't seen so far. She's been almost very normal and grounded and sort of kind of under the weight of the rest of the world and her mother. And in that scene she really takes charge. She gives Jeanette actually credit, saying, well, she's been preparing her strategy for months, and she says that's really smart of her, and that's what we need to do. We need to prepare a strategy and start playing the game. And I absolutely love it as a moment where she just seizes power from her mother. But also we suddenly see, as I said, a more ruthless side to Kate. But one detail I missed out actually in the last episode was that Jeanette was questioned by the police over her necklace, which Kate brought to them, and she basically claimed that it wasn't her necklace. She said that the necklace she tossed away because it was a gift from Mallory, and they obviously had a falling out. And she just said, that's not mine. There's hundreds of those necklaces in the mall, which Jeanette's parents questioned this because Cindy was convinced that was her necklace, and the father was doubting her as well, even though he was trying to cover it. But so we come back to that in this episode, and they've done the fingerprints from the necklace, and it's inconclusive. It's, there's sort of multiple fingerprints, or it's contaminated, and they can't get a clear match. So that's sort of that, really, and there's no case particularly against Jeanette because of that, which really fires up Kate and her mother as well. But yeah, just talking about some of the trauma in the past, because Kate, we see in this episode, is seeing a therapist, and it cuts around her and the therapist where she's reliving some of the trauma she faced in the basement, and we actually get some effective sort of flashbacks to her time when she was kidnapped by Martin. And what this episode does is it starts to build a picture of why she was taken in by him, why he was so appealing to her, and kind of the effect he has on her. And so it's a really clear picture. So once again, the various scenes and the jumping back and forth, it all adds to the bigger picture, because when we see what her life was like in the past, it sort of makes sense why she turned to someone like Martin. And there's a really nice jewel shot actually in the basement at one point where you see like the same shot but like next to each other, where she's like standing on the stairs and she's almost trying to use a certain amount of charm and talk to Martin on his level to like convince him to let her go. But we cut around it. As I said, she relives some of this trauma with the therapist, and again, it's sort of perfect that she has a therapist, not only because it makes sense because of what she's been through, but it's also just the sense of this young girl who's been through so much and just feels like she has no one else in the world. She feels like cut adrift from her parents, from her family, from sort of her friends in a way. So it makes sense and she would want therapy. But in any case, we start seeing her listening to the tapes from therapy. But what comes out at the end, which is the big sort of cliffhanger, if you like, is then she came across this girl, Annabelle, when she was in Martin's basement, and she can't remember who Annabelle is. So this is a really crucial sort of detail, which we're going to come back to at some point. And it's sort of funny because at one point, because a lot of the episode is like set at this camping trip with Kate's family, and so she's sort of she's like telling at one point she's telling like this creepy campfire story, and she's using like this girl Annabelle in it, and she's doing it to sort of get back at her mother and stuff, but she's using like this girl called Annabelle. So it's actually a really clever reveal that she met a girl called Annabelle in the basement at the end, because I just thought it was just a name she plucked out of thin air as part of this thing. But so that's really good stuff. We really see Kate's trauma. There's some, and it's a powerful performance from Olivia Holt again in the episode. She shows many different sides of Kate, a very vulnerable side at one point, a very ruthless side. Maybe the sort of side at times where you could actually think, well, maybe she is the guilty party. Maybe it isn't Jeanette so much, or maybe she's the liar at least. But I guess we'll see where that goes. But it's a really well-rounded performance. But yeah, a couple more things to say in this episode. So I'll talk about the camping trip a bit, because the reason they go on like the camping trip, and they're sort of putting it on, it's her mother's idea, and the reason is because they want to invite the neighbours, and the idea is that in this sort of neighbourhood there's a lot of gossiping, so the mother has the idea to kind of control the narrative, is how she puts it. And it's almost like this sort of irony. It's saying, well, if they're going to gossip anyway, we might as well control the gossip. Because at one point they get like just to let this bit of paper through the post that just says liar. So there's a lot of paranoia from them because someone in the neighbourhood clearly thinks that Kate's not telling the truth. So this sort of sets this stuff off. So they invite the neighbours for this camping trip, and there's a lot of like, because they're doing like clay pitch, well, shooting at animals basically. No, it's clay pigeon shooting. Yeah, that's what they're doing. So there's a lot of pull, really loudly, and these like sentences sort of scattered in between it. So really entertaining stuff. It makes for some fun scenes. But one of the big things is they invite Martin on the trip, and that's because he walked Kate home. Because this is obviously in the past, he walked Kate home and helped her when she was drunk that time at the party, and this is crucial because it's on this camping trip when him and Kate start to get close. And what happens is, because part of the deal is then we see how Kate's sister or half sister doesn't trust her. Kate really tries her best to like be friendly and like form a bond with her, but she just doesn't accept Kate, partly because she thinks that her mother, or Kate's mother I should say, doesn't love her father, which I kind of can't blame her for thinking that, I have to say, having seen the mother. But stuff like, I think there's definitely a racial element going on. She sees Kate as this privileged sort of white girl, and she's obviously from the other side of things. So there's lots of stuff, and Kate, I think, sincerely is trying to be her friend and trying to be like a sister to her, but nothing's working. And this stuff again is crucial because it sort of sets up how vulnerable and alone Kate is going to feel, and that's in part why she turns to Martin. And they start talking one night on this camping trip, and we can see just how charming Martin can be and why he would appeal to Kate. And yeah, he is really charming, and he tells her like a story, like a personal story, and you can see how he's using that as a manipulation to get her on his side. So it tells a really powerful and quite realistic story of how Kate would become this vulnerable and turn to Martin, because then like later on she's actually off with the stepsister, because she's saying, well, you weren't around for me, but luckily someone else was. And so it sort of like roles are reversed, and suddenly it's the stepsister who actually feels bad. She feels like she's sorry that she didn't allow Kate in. And there's this clever actually like reveal where Kate has been talking on like this chat room to, I think, fellow survivors, or at least it's just a forum for people in that situation. And she's waiting for whoever it is to log on and speak, and it's with the stepsister in the room. So it's later revealed that it is the stepsister who's been talking to her. So I really like that as well, that the only way she could talk to Kate was through this chat room sort of thing. There's actually something quite sweet about that, although sort of sad as well, obviously. But the other thing in the episode is then Mallory and Kate are now friends. Post Mallory like going her separate ways from Jeanette, her and Kate have formed a friendship, and we see how that happens. It happens because they both go to the same therapist. Right, and you totally believe it when you watch this scene of them together in the therapist, and they just, in a way, they sort of bond over the fact that they both feel like they've been betrayed and they've been let down by Jeanette, and just then they have common ground. He says, to be honest with you, there was a time when I really, really hated you. And Kate says, well, I don't get that very often. And Mallory has a really sweet line, because she actually says, yeah, I'm starting to believe that. So Mallory, I think, at times can be a bit fun as a character, but sort of like line, and you actually do believe in their friendship. When you start seeing them hanging out and stuff, you actually do sort of buy them as like real sort of friends. And she's there when Kate gets like the note saying liar, and they're just kind of like getting high together and stuff like that. But Mallory is almost becoming instrumental in pushing Kate and helping her in the fight against Jeanette. So credit again, as I said, to the writing, because it did make me believe in that, and believe that, yeah, I can see these two as friends, oddly enough. Maybe showing a different side to Mallory also. But it's on the edge because it could be quite a destructive thing for Kate. But yeah, another good episode, another really good episode. Really good one for Kate. The actress was very impressive, as I said, dark at times, and a lot of good sort of building up of characters and the story, and really, really important stuff. So, good episode again from Cruel Summer. I'm still liking it a lot, and I'll be back with episode 5 soon. So, thanks for listening. See you guys again soon.